Hello everyone and welcome to my full in-depth guide to sidelaning. So I've noticed after many coaching sessions that sidelaning tends to be one of the biggest differences between higher elo players and lower elo players, because the ability to keep up your golden XP and to pressure the map through the side lane in the mid game is such a crucial part of League of Legends in Season 15. So in this video I'm going to go over a bunch of examples, I'm going to lay down some of the rules that you can follow for the mid game, and hopefully by the end of the video you'll have a really good idea of how to play out the side lane all throughout the game. The first thing I want to do is lay out some rules for you guys to follow. As I go through the video, I'll expand on them. I'll talk about the exceptions, show you guys examples and stuff, but I want you guys just to remember these or write these down somewhere because you're going to need them throughout the whole video, basically. So our first thing is that our biggest goal in the mid game is to push the side lane as far as we can without dying. Now, what that's going to look like is going to depend on things like vision and junglers and stuff, things I'll talk about in a bit, but the perfect world basically is like, let's say for example that this tier 1 turret is down, you would want to, if you can, push the wave all the way to here if you can do it without dying. Obviously, if you can't push that far, then, you push to the next furthest point. Like if you can only push to here safely, that's how far you push. You only push to here safely, again, that's how far you push. And we'll talk about the things that lead to that. But for now, that's rule number 1. Push the side lane as far as you can without dying. Rule number 2 is that you want to try not to share golden XP, especially with other carries. So whenever you're sharing a wave or anything with like an ADC or a top laner or whatever, that feels really bad. As a mid laner or as a top laner, you want to be getting as much solo golden XP as possible. There will be times where it is okay to be grouped, and we'll talk about those, but just again, have it in your head that you really do not want to be sharing golden XP with other people, or at least try and minimize it as much as you can. The third rule we have is that TP is what gives you permission to side lane. So a lot of people ask, what do I do on the side lane if my teammates end up fighting mid? The answer is that most of the time you'll just TP in. So TP is what's going to allow that. It's going to mean that you're able to push side lane, knowing that if your team does get into a fight or if something happens, you can always TP and get there. And finally, our last rule is that it should feel weird to be grouped if you have TP up. So in the same way that TP is what's like allowing you to side lane, if you do have TP up, you probably don't want to be grouped, because if you have TP available and we are grouping, we're kind of wasting one of our sums. We'd want to instead be in the side lane applying pressure, because that way if something does happen, we can of course TP in, so you're maximizing your resources and getting the most out of having TP up. Let's start by expanding on our first rule then, of trying to push as far as we can without dying. One of the most important things for this is your vision setup, and your vision setup should kind of reflect what objective or like how far up you're trying to push. So what I like to do is I like to have a combination of both a pink and a yellow ward. So personally, I like to stay on my yellow trinket for most of the mid game until side laning is over. If I'm playing for this tier 1 bot turret as this blue side mid laner, probably what I would do is something like this. I'd have a pink in a defensive location and then a ward kind of next to how far I want to push. Now your vision, like I said, it's going to reflect how far you want to push up in this lane. So this green ward is basically going to be as far up as you want to push. If you want to start playing for this tier 2 turret, so if this turret is dead, probably what you want instead is to move this yellow ward somewhere up here and then your pink to this location. So again, this is quite easily defendable, and this is going to allow you to consistently push to this point. If you want the kind of like locations for everywhere, I'd say like if you're playing red side in this case, you'd place your wards somewhere like here. If we're trying to siege on the top side, it would be something like this. If we're the blue side mid trying to go this way, again, it'd be something like this. It doesn't matter too much exactly where they go. I like these locations, but ultimately just having a pink somewhere that you can defend and then having a green ward a little deeper. This can even be a blue ward if you want, like it can be a blue trinket. It is harder to defend, but that is going to be one of the most important things for, I guess, assessing how far you can push up is your own vision. Now, sometimes your teammates might place some vision for you, but this is the vision that you can generate for yourself. A second thing to think about is jungle location. So it's really important when you're playing the side lane that you're staring at the minimap and you're thinking mostly about your jungler's location, but also theirs. So if you just pause and take a look at the game state right now, I'm 5-0 on Hui. I'm extremely strong against LeBlanc. I'm 3 levels up, right? But I still, when playing the side lane, need to be very careful of where my Nocturne is. So while my Nocturne is topside, I'm kind of cautious about pushing bot side until I know where Nidalee is. If both Nidalee and Nocturne are topside, I'm fine to push. If both Nidalee and Nocturne are bot side, I'm also fine to push. But the problem is if Nocturne, my jungler, is topside and their jungler is bot side, then it's risky for me. So basically what I do here is I play first around my vision, right? I have a little bit of vision that I can work with. So even with Nocturne top, I can push a little bit. But see how I immediately hit that wave and run away? I'm basically saying that, like, I don't know if Nidalee is in this bot side jungle. And until I get confirmation on where she is, I can't push. Now, the moment I see Nidalee and Leona here on the map, I'm able to start playing more aggressively, right? If you see them, they show up for a moment. I start to like move in a little more aggressively. Now, I was a little cautious here because I wasn't sure if they were going to commit to that top play or they were going to come down. Your basic goal here is that, like, if you're weak side, and what that means is essentially if you're on the weaker half of the map, that'll generally be where your jungler isn't. Your goal is just to survive. If you can do anything extra, that's good. Like, if you can push waves without dying on weak side, that's very valuable, but it's very, very risky. So most of the time you don't want to do that. And you can kind of see, like, I don't see them top side. I'm kind of backing away a bit. I just don't know where they are. And it sucks for me, right? Because I'm 5-0. I really want to play aggressively. But ultimately, if Nocturne is not here and Nidalee is, I just need to survive. So I play safe. I just hide in the vision. I kind of stay pressuring on the map. One thing that is kind of important is that you don't just like lose all your pressure. So what I mean by that is some people would reset in this situation because they can't pressure. The problem with that is, like, then if Nidalee does show topside, then you can't pressure in time because you'll be walking out of base. So I try and stay kind of in a position where I can pressure, but not pushing so far up until I basically know for sure where they are. And then I think again in a second here, I'm about to see Nidalee, and then I feel more confident pushing. See how I'm just playing super, super safe? Eventually I see Nidalee mid. They end up showing in this mid play. And then I feel confident playing aggressively again. The art of Sidelane is like getting as much golden XP and like bringing pressure and stuff without dying. Like if you die on the side lane, it takes you so long to reset up your pressure again, right? Like you have to walk back out on the map. You have to reset up your vision. You have to wait till your jungler's there and stuff again, which takes a really long time. Now, as you can see, my Nocturne is on bot side, so I feel comfortable playing aggressively, because even if Nidalee is here, Nocturne can just counter gank me. Now, the best case scenario is that if Nocturne is on my side and Nidalee's top side, because then there's literally nothing that the enemy mid can do. But basically, the main thing you're looking at is your jungler's position. Are they on your side? If yes, it's really easy, play aggressive. If not, play a little safer until you know where their jungler is. Something I get asked a lot is, well, how can I push the side lane far if I'm playing some sort of a mobile mage, or I have like a really losing matchup, or I'm going to get killed or something like that? And the answer is, it's a lot harder, right? Like these things do matter. 1v1 strength is a factor. Laning phase is a factor. Like if you consistently win your lane really hard, that makes a big difference. It is a lot easier to side lane when you're ahead. But let's take a look at this. So there's a few things you can do. Most of it is just playing around your windows. So this was a pretty high-low game. Lathras on the Bard, Razork, Jarvan, I think it was Agron's Darius, Akali was like 1300 LP or so. So it's a pretty high-low game, right? Like people obviously know what they're doing, which means I am going to get punished on side lane if I mismanage it. Now, one of the things you can do is you can actually itemize for side lane. And sometimes this does make a difference. Like if by building, you know, defensive items or whatever, like a Seraph's instead of a Blackfire, for example, if that allows you to get more gold and XP on the side lane, either because you can just live or because you're actually now able to get Pry or whatever, those can actually be like worth it, right? Even if the item is slightly worse, if it's giving you access to a lot of additional pressure or a lot of additional gold or XP, that kind of makes up for the item being a little bit weaker. So sometimes I will, you know, champ dependent, obviously, itemize for side lane if I think it makes a difference. Again, to either getting the prior or being able to live or whatever. Now, in this situation here, this is actually kind of worst case scenario because I did itemize for side lane, right? I did build Seraphs, but Akali's 4-0 or 4-2. So what that means is that, like, despite me itemizing for side, I'm probably still going to lose, which is, again, kind of worst case because you've invested gold into what is going to make you kind of weaker in teamfight but stronger inside, but I still lose side. I was kind of hoping that Akali wouldn't be so fed and then I'd actually win the 1v1. But let's see. Okay, so I go to the side lane here, right? I'm going to walk out, and again, I want to try and play like as far out as I can, or I want to push as far as I can without dying. Remember, without dying is the key. In this situation here, I just can't push it all, right? Jarvan died, so in this situation, I pretty much just have to chill. I have no choice but to just sit under my turret, right? And honestly, that's fine. Like, if you can't push out further, the very least you can do is make sure to catch this wave under turret. As long as you have TP, you're not really losing anything. Now, in this situation here, it's kind of weird, right? My Jarvan is topside, so that kind of tells me, all right, like I may not want to push. But Bard was here and gave me a bit of vision, and also they were all low after the play, so I can probably shove one more wave, which is what I did. I quickly came bot and I shoved one more wave. Did I feel confident pushing any more though? Hell no, right? Like, I have no flash. I do have Sarah Swifty, so, like, maybe I can live. But there's too many people I don't see. I don't know where their jungler is. My Jarvan and my Bard are both not here. So, unfortunately, that's as far as I can push. And again, that's the punishment for being in this, like, bad matchup, right? Partially also because, like, my jungler and stuff are not here. But, like, this is the limitation of playing a champ like Syndra. Is it, like, in this situation, when you are countered mid, it is harder to sidelane. So, unfortunately, I just have to push and then kind of group. Now, I'll get into this rule that I talked about later of, like, it's kind of weird to group if you have TP available, but sometimes you just have to, right? Like, I'm not able to push bot, so I might as well just, like, group mid for a bit. Now, Akali ends up shoving the bot wave, so I come back to bot. I'm just going to collect this, and do I feel safe walking up to this wave? If Jarvan were here and Darius were not, I probably would. But the problem is that since Darius is, like, right next to Akali, I don't really feel that confident pushing because we probably lose this 2v2. So, like, instead, what do? We actually just back away and we let Akali shove the wave into us and we just end up collecting it. Again, it would be much better if we could push, but we just don't have the option. Now, sitting here and collecting waves under your turret, as long as you have TP available, is totally fine. Like, at the very least, you're getting a lot of golden XP. And as most mages, at least, or most mobile champs, you tend to scale quite well. So just coming and collecting gold is great. Here I reset back on the top side. The top wave is too far away, so again, I'm just forced to group, and I can't clear that top wave. So you will see, and we don't need to go through all of it, that I am constantly bleeding a little bit of CS, right? Like, I don't have 10 CS PM, but I'm just kind of following that same rule of, like, when I have people with me, when I feel safe, I will push as far as I can without dying. If I can't push it all the way, then I won't. In this situation here, though, Akali was top, I had Bard with me, I had Jarvan with me, I have really good vision, so finally, I can actually push the wave all the way into the turret. See how I'm able to actually get it all the way in, and if you can get it all the way to the turret, that's great, because that means it's going to bounce back out to you. Here, obviously, everyone died, so I continue pushing, but that's basically how you're going to do it, is, yeah, 1v1 strength and itemizing for side and having a good laning phase, those all matter, but you still want to play those same fundamentals, regardless of what situation you're in. Obviously, how far you can push and stuff is going to depend on, like, how strong you are, right? Like, if you're a 10-0 Syndra, you could probably push regardless of matchup, whereas, like, if you're just 2-1 in this situation, you've got to be really aware of, like, your jungle timers, your support timers, your vision, etc. So that's all of our rule 1 stuff out of the way. Let's start expanding on rule number 2. I said to make sure not to share golden XP. Now, by now, you're probably thinking, like, okay, it's pretty easy for me to just always go to the side lane, you know, gather golden XP by myself. That's totally fine. Sometimes, though, like, you do have to be grouped, right? Like, it's going to happen either because you can't push side lane or an objective is spawning or something. Now, one of the best things you can do is, if you are forced to group for whatever reason, is actually to try and hide in the fog of war as much as possible. So in this situation here, you know, following on from our previous one, I wasn't able to push the bot wave anymore. But notice how I pathed to mid, hiding in fog the entire time, right? So I never show on this mid wave because I don't want to give them free pressure. And again, I don't want to leech any golden XP from Varus. So what I'm going to do is just try and hide in this fog the whole time. And basically, I can pressure here. Like, if the enemy team shows on the side lane, potentially I can force a play mid. They don't know for sure where I am. I could be in base. I could be sitting behind the mid. They don't know. So this is one of the best ways to have pressure if you feel like you can't push out the side, while also making sure that you're not, like, taxing your AD carry at all. So I'm just sitting here, and eventually we're actually able to make a play. Now, this was a bit interesting because they actually forced the play on us, which is, you know, probably incorrect. But that's basically what you want to look for, right? Like, it's possible that they face check and you will get the kill. So that's great. And then if we skip ahead for a bit, you'll kind of see the same thing. So there's like a point where I'm unable to push side anymore. And again, I make sure to path through the fog. So I try to make sure that I'm not seen. I come and make a play mid. Here, when I didn't feel safe going top wave, I'm not sharing this golden XP with Varus. I'm just hovering. So if you ever feel, again, like if you're in the situation of, like, damn, I just can't push or whatever, the best thing to do is to just, like, hide in fog, typically next to mid lane, because you're going to be able to create plays or, you know, react to plays that they make and potentially catch people out. A really common mistake I see is not spreading out after a team fight. So after a team fight is done, I oftentimes see you guys just group with the rest of your team and shove down a lane as a group. That's really not good. Like, that's sharing gold and XP through multiple people when there's probably gold elsewhere on the map. And the other one I see is just staying around and hitting objectives. Once the enemy team is dead, or once the objective is more or less secured, you should just leave. It's not really your job as a mid laner or a top laner to go and hit neutral objectives. It's kind of a waste of time. Your goal is just to secure them, as in you want to make sure that you win the fight or you have the prior or whatever. You see here, the moment I notice that this is all done, I basically decide that I'm just going to go get gold elsewhere, right? So I notice here, all right, this fight is done. That should be Atacon. They've got 3 dead. There's no way they're contesting this now, right? So what I do is I instead just go mid, because I don't want to go bot and share gold with Kai'Sa. Even if by going bot here, even if I'm the difference between getting this bot turret or not, I still wouldn't go there. We can always take the bot turret later, and probably there's more gold to get elsewhere anyway. So in this situation, what I did is I came mid and I immediately shoved. I shoved 2 waves. Potentially, you could even go for more gold here. If you were really greedy, you could probably try to take enemy topside camps, or maybe you could even take the time to walk topside. But basically, it's realizing that, like, since there is so many resources on the map, you don't have to share them with other people, particularly after the fight is secured, and again, you're not really needed for actually hitting objectives. Now, obviously, if, I don't know, let's say, for example, there's only 2 of you alive, and you have to hit the objective, then you can. But you really need to take a look and be like, all right, am I actually needed for this? Because the majority of the time you're not, and you should just be somewhere else. If you guys remember, rule number 3 was that TP gives you permission to sidelane. And what that means is that if you do use your TP, whether it's a good TP or not, it's going to make farming more difficult for the next 4 minutes or so. So that means that using your TP has to be really, really worth it. And I'll show you some examples of that. That also means, though, that holding TP is actually very valuable. Simply holding TP generates a lot of pressure and allows you to get a lot more golden XP. So I'll show you some examples here of maybe where you guys would have TP'd, where actually I am just holding it. So here I'm pathing on the map, right? I'm going to bot lane. I don't need a TP or anything. I'm just going to walk out. You'll first notice that my team is going to get into a fight on mid. Now, why don't I TP to this? First off, it's a really bad time to fight. So Pantheon and Mundo are not even here, right? So even if I TP in, it's a pretty big numbers disadvantage fight. If I TP to the turret, there's probably not a lot I can do. Second, the side lane waves are not pushed. If I TP into this right now, Akali gets bot turret for free. Now, that could be worth it if the fight's really good, right? Like, let's say, for example, Pantheon and Mundo were here. I probably would TP, even though I'm going to give up the side lane turret, because the fight itself looks so valuable. But here, these guys are just caught. They're just out of position. There's no point TPing. So I just decide to hold it. And as long as Ezreal lives, he should be able to hold the mid turret. So we're not in too much danger. Now, I managed to clear waves on the bot side. We get Akali's flash. And eventually here I go for a reset. Now, if you look, by TPing bot, I could save this turret, right? Like, see how the Akali is, like, really, really pushed up on this turret. And by TPing to it, I could probably get to it in time and clear the way. Now, why don't I do this? 2 reasons. One, again, I actually value my TP higher than protecting this tier 1. Tier 1 turrets are not worth that much gold. Now, tier 2 turrets are kind of a different story. You probably do want to TP to defend a tier 2 if you have to. Now, ideally, the macro, like, you kind of work your way back and you're like, okay, maybe I could have based earlier and that way I didn't have to TP, because again, holding the TP is so valuable. But also, if I TP here, there's actually a good chance I just die, because if you notice, my team is making a play topside on this Herald. So right now, we don't know where the rest of their team is. And if they're not contesting Herald, most likely they're going to do some sort of play bot side. So not only would this be bad from the sense of, like, I'm going to put myself in a lot of danger, it's also bad in the sense that the turret is just not that valuable, and we really, really want to hold TP in order to give ourselves permission to side lane for the foreseeable future. A couple of other things you can think about in order to help inform your decision of whether you should TP or not is first consider how strong are you, or like, do you actually want to fight? So if we take this, for example, this current situation, I'm a Lissandra without ult. Now, Lissandra without ult, pretty weak. By default, you probably don't want to TP in here unless it looks really, really good. Another thing here is that I'm very close to Liandry. Now, Liandry itself is a good item, right? Very strong item. But Liandry components are actually very weak. Faded Ashes is, you know, one of the worst items in the game. And Haunting Guise is good, but it's not great. So in other words, despite me being strong in like a minute when I have ult and I have Liandry, I'm currently in this massive power trough. So I don't really want to fight right now just to begin with. Also, something worth considering is how much can you take in the side lane. So in this situation here, right, I'm wanting to pressure this turret. And if you have grubs, like if you had 6 grubs, for example, that also further incentivizes you to stay in the side lane. Same thing as if you're a champion that's playing Hullbreaker, or if you're playing a champion that just deletes turrets, right? That could be Echo, it could be Azir, Fiora, Trundle, etc., right? So in this situation here, my Rengar gets caught. I was already pretty sure that I was never going to TP into this because, again, I'm just not ready. I don't have ult, I don't have gold. Again, we look at this and it's like, well, Corki's hitting mid as well. So this just looks like the worst TP of all time. Like, you never want to TP here, because we're getting, in the meantime, so much gold bot. Like, the enemy LeBlanc is grouped here. See how the enemy LeBlanc is grouped with Ignite? That means that she's just bleeding gold bot side. In the meantime, I'm just getting further and further ahead. She's losing turrets for free. The best play is for Rengar just not to do anything. But even if Rengar trolls, right? Like, even if our teammates suck or whatever, we can get a ton here by realizing that it's just a bad idea to TP. So we end up getting the turret. We end up shoving in the wave. We end up going home and getting Liandry's. And now we're really strong, right? We come back on the map. Our wave is shoved, so we don't need to be bought. We've got our Liandry. We've got our ult. Basically, as strong as we could possibly be. And then we come up and take the fight. So just by doing this, it puts us in a really good spot. And also, you know, one little thing that you might not even consider here is by pushing bot, you made Zac show, right? And this Zac actually has exhaust, so it's even better. I made Zac respond to this, which means that, like, not only was this better because I get more gold and I get my items and I fight at a better time, but also it gives us a numbers advantage, right? Zac is not in this fight, whereas if I didn't push bot, potentially Zac could be here. So we've kind of established by now that in general, using your TP is actually kind of bad. But when should we TP? Like, when should we actually TP in? The easiest way, or the most obvious one, is to just TP into all the big fights. The ones specifically being Dragons, Barons, and Atakan. Now, ideally, you actually reset before these objectives are being contested. So, like, if Dragon is spawning in a minute, you probably want to reset and walk out of base. And that way, you don't actually have to use your TP. If you're late, though, or you're stuck on the map, or you died, or the fight just happens somewhat unexpectedly, like a random Baron or a random Atakan, you probably should TP in. So let's take this situation. I'm deploying topside because I want to play to the side lane. I've got TP up, so if anything goes wrong, I can TP in. I don't want to TP into this fight here, right? I don't have my teammates there. My Mel is just deploying on the map. My Shaker's not here. So I don't really ever want to TP into this. If these guys get caught, that's like totally on them. I don't really care. I'm just going to keep my TP. That being said, though, they do start the Atakan. So I first push top. There's a couple things that this does. One, it means if we can't contest Atakan, let's just say we're way too weak, I could trade top turret. So in the very worst case, I give Atakan, but I get gold by hitting top turret, basically, right? I get 700 gold. Second thing is maybe someone will come top, right? Potentially, I could bait someone to come top and clear the wave. More likely, though, the person that's grouped at Baron, or sorry, at Atakan, is just going to lose an entire top wave. So basically, even though the Atakan play is still good for them, I'm setting it up so that if they do get it, I can tax them pretty heavily on it. At the very least, I deny a wave. At the most, I take a turret. Now, in this situation here, it looked like it was actually contestable. Zoe's a really good champ for poking in this area, and so this is kind of risky. Like, the safe play is to hit top, but I was thinking, okay, like, these guys are taking a lot of Atakan damage. I'm really, really strong. We can probably fight it. But like I said, the higher percentage play might be to still stay top. I was confident doing this, though, just because I was so strong. So we TP in, and just ignore the fight for now. Just look at top wave. So see how... I'm assuming it's Lux here, I guess should be top. She is at least bleeding the wave top. So, like, obviously, even if we, like, lost this fight, it's not going to be good, right? Like, we're not going to be happy about losing the fight. But at the very least, we did manage to deny 2 waves top. There was, like, that wave that we killed initially, and now the wave that's dying. So at the very least, that's, like, a minus 200 gold, kind of like power play for them making this. Obviously, they're going to gain some by doing it, but... the point is that, like, you're trying to take what little, or you're trying to deny any little extra piece of gold that you can. And if this looked truly unfightable, I could have taken top turret, right? Like, if you notice, the top turret actually gets pretty low just by the minions hitting it, so I could have stayed top and just hit that and given the Atakan. So TPing into these big fights is important if you think you can contest. If you can't, though, just keep your TP and continue to pressure the side lane, keep shoving, and try and take turrets, or at the very least, take away camps and deny waves. It is possible, though, that a big fight, like a fight that you need to be a part of, does break out randomly. Even in high elo, this happens. Obviously, it's more common in lower elo, but, you know, it happens fairly frequently in high elo, too. So if you notice, it's a bit hard to see here because I had map cover on. Camille and I are both pressuring the side lane. So So probably the best play here is for my bot lane just to neutralize. If these guys can stay healthy and defend the tier 2 turret mid, the enemy team should be bleeding a lot by grouping so many people mid, right? Like we kind of said before, you don't really want to group this many people mid because you're just losing so much on side lanes and you're sharing so much golden XP. But here's the problem. My bot lane got chunked. And so the enemy team wants to punish this. They want to try and make this play happen. So what that means is like once this guy dies, it's like, well, you know, we might need to TP in and to defend, especially if the fight continues on. Now, I was kind of down to just keep going, right? Like I was down to keep pressuring. I was down to keep pushing the side lane. I can deny a lot of gold here. I can get a lot of damage on the turret with my 3 grubs. I'm denying a cannon wave. So I am totally down with just continuing to push. Here's the thing though, is that I noticed at some point here, Camille TP'd in. So if you see again on the map, Camille starts a TP. So now at this point, if Camille is committing to this, I probably have to commit to this too. So even though I didn't want to TP, I was like, okay, well, you know what, if Camille is TPing, I've probably got to do this as well. So I decided to TP behind, and we're actually able to get a good flank. Now, whether or not we should even be taking this fight to begin with, you know, it probably is better, like I said, if Corki had just managed to survive. Like, if Corki had just not died, and we all played this side lane, I think that's higher percentage overall. But like I said, sometimes these random fights do break out, and if you notice that it's a fight that is big enough, as in, like, there's enough people in it to make it worth going to, it can be worth. Now, the downside of this, obviously, is that we lose our TP. And also, there's no objectives available. So again, you can't see because of the map, but the enemy team had just taken Dragon. Obviously, Atakan or Baron are not up. So ultimately, this just ends up being kills, which is not even that worth it. But if I don't TP into this and I'm just not there while Camille is, it's probably going to end up being really bad. Now, of course, this does make it much harder for me to CS for the next 5 minutes. So I probably spend quite a bit of time, you know, hovering around my teammates or whatever here. But that's a good example of a big enough fight that's worth TPing into. A final rule was to try not to group if you have TP up. And what I'm trying to do with this is I'm trying to encourage you to spend time on the side lane and actually get value out of your TP, because a lot of you guys are just not actually pressuring the side. So in this last little section, I'm just going to show you kind of some more things you can do in order to get more pressure out of the side lane. So there's 2 big ones. In my mind, syncing pressure and tempo with your jungler is a big one, which I'll show you examples of. And another one is not giving up all your pressure randomly by recalling. So recall timings are really, really important in the mid game. So if we kind of skip through here, right, you'll see in this situation, I currently do not have prior bot. My Nocturne is on top side, which means, you know, I can't really pressure. As I mentioned in one of the very first clips though, if you reset in this situation, the problem is you're going to have to spend so long getting set back up on the map that by the time Nocturne is here, you're not actually able to pressure. So unless you really need to recall, as in you're low HP, low mana, you have a lot of gold or whatever, rather, even in the situation where you can't pressure, rather than basing, you actually just want to come and choose a bush to hide in, basically. The more aggressively you can hide, the better. Like, if you can hide further up on the map, that's generally more valuable because you're going to be closer to being able to pressure. In some situations, though, you just don't have the vision. So like in this situation here, I definitely did not need a base. I just came and held a bush. And what this meant is that when Xin Zhao came in, I was able to get this pick with Nocturne. Now, that second point I hit on just before is syncing tempo, especially with your jungler, but with your team as a whole. So there's a couple things that go into that. One is like, if your team is pressuring, you want to be pressuring as well. So like if everyone on the map is playing really aggressive, you kind of want to play aggro as well, because like you want to, you know, if your team gets engaged on, you want to be in position to, again, either immediately TP or to trade something. In the same way, if your entire team is off the map, you've got to be really careful because, like, if no one else is pressuring, you're like a sitting duck, right? Like, you're the main target. If that's too much, though, the most important person to sync tempo with is your jungler. So if you ever are going to recall, it's a really good thing to do is if you can recall with your jungler. So in this situation here, both Nocturne and I are resetting at the same time. And that means that we're going to be back on the map ready to pressure at the same time. It also means that there's not this weird thing where like I'm on the map waiting for him or he's on the map waiting for me. To kind of build on this even further, if you can maximize the, I guess, like make the most out of your downtime, that's really valuable. So in this situation here with no ult on Ahri, it's a really good time to recall while my ult is on cooldown. Because if I'm recalling when my ult is up, that's saying that I could do something, I could make a play. But while my ult's down, I kind of don't want to. So now is an amazing time to recall. My jungler is resetting, I have no ult, I have nothing to do on the map anyway. So just kind of skim through and try and show you guys more examples of this. I go and push out the side lane, I quickly kill the Syndra. This is a good example here, where like my entire team is pressuring, so I'm kind of comfortable to pressure as well, even though I'm extremely low on health. So if you notice here, my Ezreal is pushing up mid, my Nocturne is pushing into their jungle, My Zillion is maybe even like looking for a play top. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Now, if my entire team were in base here, I probably should just base because like I would be the only person on the map to kill. But currently, I feel pretty confident pushing this because my entire team is pressuring. If they collapse on me, we're going to get stuff for free elsewhere. And if they collapse on my teammates, then I get this turret for free, which is actually what ends up happening. I get this with my Nocturne hovering. Once again, I sync the tempo with the Nocturne, I go for the recall, and we're able to, again, make a play together. See how this time I've got that bot wave pushed out, which forces Syndra to show. That means Syndra will not be in this fight. And then I'm here with Nocturne. We've got a TP flying, and ultimately this fight ends up going really, really well for us. We're able to make this play, and Syndra, I'm not even sure if she ever gets here. No, I don't think she does. So see how she's like on bot lane the entire time. We do end up losing the wave bot, which is definitely not ideal. And Syndra did a good job of, if she couldn't come to this play, that's definitely the best thing she could do. This also would be an opportunity where if you think that you can like prevent this turret dying by TPing, you should. Like if you can recall here and potentially TP bot and that saves a turret, that would be worth it because that is 700 gold that you give over to her. So I actually end up dying here, which is a misplay, but it's not really relevant to what we're talking about. We managed to defend the bot turret and that's super good, right? We managed to win that fight because it was 5 versus 4. Our tempo and everything was really well synced up with Nocturne. We defend the bot turret and pretty much everything just works itself out from here. Lastly, I just wanted to go through a few of the common questions that I get asked on stream or that come up in coaching sessions. So I have a little list here. Maybe the one I get asked the most is, what do you do if you're running Ignite? So first off, this is one of the reasons why TP is generally better than Ignite, because TP is not only a better summoner in the early game if used properly, but it's also a better sum in the mid game. Now, if you are taking Ignite, you're kind of taking it because you're in a winning matchup or you're in a situation where you're able to generate enough threat, like enough prior, that maybe it doesn't matter so much that you don't have TP. What I mean by that is, if, for example, let's say you're this blue side mid laner and you're losing, you're getting shoved in mid. If you have Ignite in this situation rather than TP, you're basically fucked. Like, there isn't really anything you can do. If you group here early, this guy with TP takes your turret. Hopefully, you could force a play and make this guy TP away, but honestly, if they play it well, you're not going to be able to. If you stay here and this guy TPs into the fight, it's really, really bad. So if you're losing with Ignite, GG, it's fucked. If you are winning with Ignite, though, you can kind of make it work. So if you can get Prow in the side lane, if this guy TP's in, you can just commit to taking this turret. Or if this guy is sitting here with TP, maybe you can make a play mid, and then he TP's in, and then, like, I don't know, maybe you can just, like, come back and kill him on the rotation back, or potentially maybe you just have enough kill threat anyway, like, even, just from having your Ignite, maybe you can just solo kill him on the turret. Basically, it's a lot harder. Like, playing without Ignite or without TP sucks. But if you can use TP to leverage yourself enough pressure over the side lane, this gives you prior, which will allow you to either be at the fight first or to trade something in the event a fight happens without you. The second one I have on my list here is, which lane should I go to out of base? So there's kind of a few answers to this. So in a perfect world, what you would want to do is you would want to go to your strong side. You would want to go to the side that your jungler and support are playing for and the side of the next objective. Let's say, for example, the dragon is spawning in 3 minutes. What that means is that support and jungle will probably be putting a lot of effort into setting this up. And it would make a lot of sense if you could be on that side. Because, that's going to give you like a lot of strength. It's going to allow you to like pressure a lot on this side. Now, there's like a couple things I guess that go into this. First is that if you're losing, like if you're really weak, it might actually be better for you to go top. And the reason is, in that situation, right, like you kind of just want to leech your way back into the game. You want to potentially trade something here and give this objective. Alternatively, if you're a split pushing champ, you probably want to be on the opposite side of the objective anyway, so that you can put some pressure up here. The thing is though, and the thing I answered this question with most of the time, is realistically, you should just path to wherever you can get farm. So it doesn't really matter where you should be, it matters more like where people are on the map. If, for example, your bot lane is just bot lane in this situation, then you should go mid because that's where you can get your farm. If your top laner is already on their way to bot in this situation, then you should go top. It really just comes down to, yeah, like if everyone's on the map or everyone's off the map, you can choose some ideal lane assignment for yourself, ideally with your, with your jungler support next to the objective. But realistically, you should just be going to the lane where you can find the most farm for yourself. And the last one I get all the time is, I feel I should be grouped because my team is losing. So this is kind of the other way around, actually. If your team is really losing, then most likely you don't want to be grouped with them. Like if you're the only strong member of your team, but your entire team is losing, it's a very unlikely that you're able to carry fights hard enough in order to win. But what you can do is you can leverage your side lane advantage. So what that means is that like, you can continue to snowball on the side lane. You can bring people away. You can buy your team more time to farm their way back into the game. Or potentially, if you can make people show here or kill them, you can take so much gold in the side lane that, you know, you could end up accelerating and like super 1v9ing. Or again, like just by making people show here, you might be able to make some sort of numbers advantage fight, right? Like if you could bring 2 people here because this guy's really scared, and then make a fight mid that's like super advantage to you guys numbers wise, that's going to be really good. So basically realize that like if your team is losing, you're actually more incentivized to not group. You might be wondering, okay, like should I still TP into the fights? Yeah, I would say so. Like if your teammates have a random fight, you know, with TP available, you should still TP into there. I don't think we really want to change that fundamental. Just realize that like, you know, I hear it all the time, like, oh, I can never side lane because my team is losing, and if I'm not there, you know, they're just going to lose even harder without me. It's the opposite. Like, if your team is really fed, potentially, you know, especially if you're weak, you can group around them and, like, leech your way back in the game with, like, kills and stuff. But if you're ahead, like you want nothing to do with them. You want to play to your own individual win condition and really leverage the fact that you are much stronger than them on the sideline. So guys, that's it for this video. If you have any other questions or anything, please put them in the comment section below. If you have suggestions for other fundamentals you'd like to see covered, please put that down there as well. You can also come to my stream and ask questions there. Finally, as a reminder, I do coach in the MLA, which there is a link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.